A few here. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We've got a real fun show for you in store this time. A few shows in the recent past here have been called a Beatles Preferences show. And what I do in that show is I take two or three songs or albums from the Beatles group or solo, I pit them together, and I ask my guests on the show to say which ones they prefer to listen to. I'm not asking them which one of the songs or albums is better or best. It's just what they feel like listening to today. Okay? One of my guests here, Ken Womack, I'm sure if I said Let It Be or You Know My Name, he would pick You Know My Name. But I'm
I
sure
would.
he'd say Let It Be is a better song. But all I want to know is what you feel like listening to. And it's just getting into their brains, finding out how they think. That's part of the fun of doing this, learning from them what they hear in the music and why they prefer certain songs or albums over the others. So I thought it might be a cool idea to bring back Ken Womack and not only have Ken on, but have two of his co-authors on with him. So this is Ken's posse that we have here on this show. I was going to invite Kid O'Toole, but I'm going to have her on for this for her own podcast, Toppermost of the Poppermost. They're going to do a show on this too. So let me
With
welcome.
Kit, you almost want to give a whole show to Kit. I mean,
That's true. You know, she is the queen.
of all Beatles media.
Yes. So let's welcome Ken Womack, first of all. He's been a frequent guest on all my shows here. You know him for many, and I mean many, Beatles books that have come out. This is the most recent one. It's hard to keep up with them. Living the Beatles Legend, The Untold Story of Mal Evans, and he's written a couple of books on George Martin. He's written Solid States, book on the Abbey Road Studios, John Lennon 1980, The Last Days in the Life. That is the name, right? 1980, Last Days in the Life. Yeah, okay. And so many other books. He has his own podcast show, Everything Fab 4. He's always busy. And in fact, he is writing or is currently writing two new books with another one of our guests, Scott Freiman, and I'll bring him on in just a moment. And welcome aboard, Ken.
Well, and I'm going to even add to that. I'm writing a book with, you've got my posse here. Jason and I have been putting the finishing touches for quite a while on a book called Beatles 74. So, um, you know, I could not be more proud to be in a posse, not just with those two guys, but you too, Ken.
Okay, well, thank you. Why don't we just take a camera and just record everything you do during the day? That'll be the reality show, and then everything is covered.
That will be a really boring show, except for my cat Dave.
Okay.
It'd
All
be a lot
right.
of furious typing, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And several
So,
clones.
what's
Yes,
that?
definitely
Several
clones.
clones,
There's no
yes.
other way.
Okay. Jason Kruppa is also with us, and he collaborated with Ken on this beauty here, All Things Must Pass Away, Harrison Clapton, and Other Assorted Love Songs. It's all about the relationship between the two with details on All Things Must Pass. There was a revived edition which came out, which had Mal Evans notes in there, and it tells you day by day what songs George Harrison worked on and all the musicians on each song. And whereas all these years, if you bought the album, it said a list of all the musicians without telling you what songs they're on, you can find out in this book. Okay, the revised edition of this one. And of course, Jason has his own website and his own podcast called Producing the Beatles. And it's a fascinating look, detailed at individual songs from the Beatles group and solo. I've listened to four of them so far. I hope to listen to more. And Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you. You've resisted the addiction that apparently some people have, where they've listened to the each episode multiple times. Which, I'm grateful, but I'm also concerned a little. Um, but currently on season two, working on season two. So yeah. Um,
Okay.
Look forward to
I
that, everybody.
I loved what I listened to on In My Life. You went into detail on George Martin's piano solo. You did a show on Eleanor Rigby. There was one on My Sweet Lord and one on Isn't It a Pity? And actually, the kind of work you do and the kind of work that Scott does is very similar because you're able to pick apart all these different tracks and really go into detail of how these songs were constructed. And that leads me into Scott Freiman, who's known for his Deconstructing the Beatles series, which is being shown on PBS channels across the country, and he has his own DVD collection of uh, of deconstructing the Beatles for individual albums, and he's got appearances coming up, probably in your area. One of them will be one in New Haven, Connecticut, very soon, and I'll be there for that. And Scott, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and great to be here with such esteemed guests.
hmm So Ken's posse, are you ready to participate? So the first example I'm going to have here are two classic Beatles songs. So each of you have to tell me which of the two of them you prefer to listen to. A Day in the Life or I Am the Walrus?
Ooh. Wow, I hate this question.
So that's a tough one. That is a tough one.
The best part about this show and this idea is that I don't have to give my opinion. I let my guests do all the work here.
That's incredibly unfair.
Okay, so let's start with Glenn. If you had to pick between A Day in the Life or I Am the Walrus, which one would you choose?
Well, recognizing that this is a brutal question, it's a day in the life. And I think I come to this by way of teaching it so often. It's a spine tingler, right? The drama, the excitement of it. I would give it the edge, but I hate leaving the other one on the table.
Hmm. I kind of figured that you would pick I Am the Walrus, so I'm a little surprised.
Well,
Because
I
it's
like to keep you guessing, Ken, as you know.
okay. Well, you're very unpredictable, Ken. So, so your choice is A Day in the Life.
It's a day in the
And
life.
Scott, how about you?
I am going to have to disagree with my co-writer there. A Day in the Life is a masterpiece. There is no question about it. But I Am the Walrus has some really fun stuff to pick apart in it. You've got the Mike Sims choir that's doing all kinds of crazy stuff with the voices. You've got an amazing arrangement by George Martin,
Hmm.
which, he took the Song of John's, which has two notes in the melody. I mean, it's da 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 da. I mean, there's nothing there, and he
Yeah.
transforms it with his arrangement, and then the radio and all the weird stuff going on with the vocals. It's really really interesting. I've listened to A Day in the Life 1,000 times. I love talking about it. I do a whole episode of my TV series just on that one song. So it's a really hard choice. But you said, what would I feel like listening to right now?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in an I'm the Walrus mood.
Yeah. And how much do you appreciate the backing tracks that we just got on Anthology Volume 4 for I Am the Walrus?
Yeah, no, it's great because I have and Jason has, I'm sure, been able to isolate different things from various mixes, but it's always fun to get something new and to be able to pick those apart. And I love the way parts are emphasized that maybe don't come out in the isolated tracks or in the mixes, and always fun to sort of look at a song that you know really really well, but look at it in a completely new light.
Hmm. Okay. Jason, your
Well,
turn.
Tiebreaker.
I like to put A Day in the Life in the left headphone channel and I'm the Walrus in the right.
I didn't give you that option.
Oh man, it would speed up my impending psychosis for one thing. Um, I will agree with Scott and say I am the Walrus. Obviously, A Day in the Life is I described it once as something I wrote as sort of the collision of pop music and 20th century experimental music and all of these crazy ideas in that orchestral build up, all of this sort of coming together and sort of creating a new possible pathway. So I have, I think we all remember the first time we heard that song, The Effect, and I heard it in headphones. I remember. So, that in itself is I mean, like everybody, I'm going to praise the other song and I'm going to pick the other one. But I have spent a lot of time with I Am the Walrus lately because and this eventually will be something I'll cover on the podcast, but just from my own curiosity, I've used machine learning tools to take apart the early, what do you call them? The monitor mixes, which are really low fidelity recordings that were, done in the early 80s. And to reconstruct those into higher fidelity versions in stereo so that you can hear things more clearly. Just to first to see if I could do it, and then once I got that, sort of listening to him and realizing that, is we're sort of locked into Ringo. Ringo's part is like that's Ringo's part, and John's part is that John's part. And it's interesting, especially in Ringo's case, to hear him creating his part on the fly. So each take, he's doing something a little different. He's adding little different fills, and I think that's it's fascinating to hear that process at work. But I mean, the orchestration, I think it's the greatest thing that George Martin ever did with them. It's just so creative and so full of crazy ideas and those wide glisses on the strings and
yeah.
And I mean, that's sort of an objective defensive saying like this is greater or whatever. I don't think one is greater than the other, but at this particular moment, because that's where my head is, and because of the recent orchestral isolation that's on Anthology 4, that's where my head is. And also, just to point out, if anybody hasn't noted that rock and bass clarinet part in the orchestration, which you can almost hear in the mono mix, but it's clear as day now.
How much of your opinions really come from hearing isolated tracks? Because we learned so much from them. I mean, George Martin, there's so many times when you could say, well, George Martin should have gotten a co-writing credit on this Beatles song because of what he added to it. Even if it's something as simple as speed up, please, please me. Or
Right.
anything that he did with orchestras or brasses, and what a mind he had to add whatever he did to so many of their songs, especially I Am the Walrus. And in your case, Jason, you're also thinking about the evolution of the song. So how much of that comes into play when you're judging these two songs now in this day and age when you have this luxury of hearing all these isolated tracks? Ken, you want to comment on that?
Well, I think you're onto something. There's no doubt that having that technology and the ability to really listen to the nooks and crannies of these songs makes such a difference. I mean, Jason recently prepared the basic track of Here Comes the Sun for my class, my Beatles class. Um, and then what we did in class, now that we had this great tool that he built, we were able to listen to the different pieces that would be layered on top, right? The
Hmm.
Moog and the vocals, etc. And it does make a difference in how you experience the song, right? Being able to understand that, it's not just this moment, this instance of greatness, but that it's really constructed, it's
Hmm.
built. And I think you're right. I think there's no doubt that that affects how we think about the music. Of course, now it affects how we think about a lot, right? Then it's portable, and we start thinking about how a movie is made, or um, or a painting, or what, or a novel. It's a very portable kind of way of thinking about the world.
I think what was so great about Martin specifically, and that really comes out when you isolate his parts, is that he didn't do the typical thing you would expect, right? And when presented a challenge, whether it was Strawberry Fields, whether it was Day in Life, whether it was I Am the Walrus, he rose the occasion, and he did something just as bold as the songwriters had done. In those cases, John Lennon, but he did the string quartet for Yesterday, which was a big deal. You didn't have something like that on a pop rock recording. You had the Mantovani strings, but you didn't have um, something that tasteful, that classical oriented. And it just seemed that he was very, very good at being a partner with the band and being as experimental and as adventurous and as risk taking as the rest of them were. And that's why I think we all agree that that pairing of George and the four Beatles was just, made in heaven. That was amazing what they accomplished.
So much the ideal producer for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I think about Yesterday, I think about Eleanor Rigby, at the same time. It isn't just the fact that you had uh the eight strings on there, but it's just that and vocals. No
Yeah.
Right.
guitars, no drums, no pianos. I mean, when did that happen on a pop record? A lot of people don't point that out. Maybe there are some
Right.
acapella singles that have come out, but that was just so unique for its time.
Yeah, you might have an orchestra, but you wouldn't have something like that. And I think, to amplify what Scott's saying, I think and I said this in a class I taught a while back, is that about George Martin's orchestrations, is that these things are coming from his personality. All four of the Beatles, we know their personalities. His personality, his experience was based in so many things. The Baroque music, which is what that string quartet idea
Mm,
comes out of, and he had early on wanted to be a film composer, and so he has this idea of how music can create a narrative behind what the foreground is. And that goes into his classical interest too, because he talks about being really just blown away by Prelude to the Afternoon of the Faun by Debussy, hearing that when he was in his teens, and how that really just changed his idea of what music could do. All of those things are playing into these scores that he's writing, which
Plus
is
the humor aspect, right?
yeah.
The
right.
fact that he'd worked with so many comedians,
Yeah, and
because
there,
I'm the Walrus is a funny arrangement, right?
yeah,
It really
yeah,
is.
yeah. That the whole crazy things that the vocalists are doing is right out of that kind of goofy, just left field stuff. But to Ken, to go back to your original question about if the outtakes have an effect on what I want to listen to. I mean, just because my head is deep into that particular track right now, I would say yes. It it is interesting to listen to these outtakes, sort of these raw, naked, undubbed takes, and not listen to the original for a while, and then go back to the original,
Mm,
and it's almost like I've forgotten a little bit what that sounds like,
Hmm.
and
right.
to hear it in its full, produced arrangement, um, it just throws everything into such great relief. Like just all of the parts and all of the way this was sort of, synthesized and combined into this really powerful piece of music. Um, so yeah, that's my answer to your specific question from
Yeah.
20 minutes
Me,
ago.
we're living at a time when there's so many revelations that we're discovering about the Beatles music. And even if it's not outtakes, to hear the finished songs, but isolated tracks. Like
Yeah.
I've been listening to I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, and it's just John's vocal and the guitar playing. By itself, it could have went out like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
good
yeah.
enough. It was complete, just those two elements, so it's amazing, what they were able to pull off, such incredible recordings and so quickly too. All right, this time I got three solo albums, and they're
Ooh.
all albums that are cover versions. John's Rock and Roll, Paul's Russian album, Paul's Run Devil Run.
Ooh.
Which of those three
Mm.
albums would you pick to listen to right now? They're all different in their own way. But this time, let's start with Scott.
Wow, that's a tough one. I love all those albums. I'm gonna give John the thumbs up on this one, because there's something about those arrangements with especially the Phil Spector production and everything. They just feel um, they feel like they fit these old songs, and he has such love for the songs that even despite how he might have been mentally and where he was, the drinking, whatever else,
Mm.
he pulls it off, and he does these really engaging arrangements. I have to be honest, I heard that album when I was in my teens, and some of those songs, that those were the first versions I heard, and it made me go back and check out the originals. I like it because of its even though it's polished and produced, there's a rawness to it and there's an energy to it that I really really like.
Yeah. Well, there is a big difference between the songs that John produced and the ones that Phil Spector produced. You
No
can
question.
certainly tell
Yes.
the Phil stuff is more layered,
Oh,
definitely. But
yes.
still, there's a consistency throughout the album. And I love those arrangements. Jason?
Um, in contrast, I will cross John's off immediately because, and only because this goes to outtakes. Um, I mean, we've all heard the sort of jam session from Plastic Ono Band where John runs through, the old rockabilly songs, just sort of
Mm.
blast through them, and um, that's what I wish rock and roll was. I wish he had
Mm,
just gotten Klaus and Ringo and just blasted through a bunch of his favorites
mm,
because those performances have such raw energy. I would have loved an album of just that. Um, as far as the other two, man, that's tough. I'm gonna go with the Russian album just because I just remember finally getting the vinyl of that. Uh, I think 2 or 3 years after it came out, and it was just it was a fun thing to have. It was a fun record, and I feel like that's what it needs to be. It needed to be a fun
Mm.
record. You're playing your favorites from when you were a kid, and that's what it should be like. Not that Run Devil Run isn't fun, but to me, there's a difference. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't listened to either of those in a long time, so I'm sort of going off memory here. I don't know if anybody else can kind of quantify that difference, but that's what it sounds like to me.
Do you prefer the Russian album in the same way that what you just said about John and the stuff we heard from outtakes from Plastic Ono? Because it was a simpler production. It
Yeah,
wasn't so polished. It was like
yeah,
if Paul was in your studio or your basement, this is what it would sound like.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of the energy. It's like I said, it's fun, it's loose, it feels, sort of like you say, unproduced.
Okay. Ken?
Well, I'll keep the trend alive. It's Run Devil Run for me. Um, I love all three of these records, so kudos to you for putting us in situations where we're sort of pitting our favorites against each other. But lately, I've been listening to that one a lot. The emotionality of it, the post Linda tragedy. Um, it's it's one of the last times Paul's an amazing voice. I mean, it's always good
mm,
voice,
Hmm.
but it's a very special record for me in that way. But also really the emotionality. I really respond to that. Paul sometimes is maligned for not um, engaging with any kind of depth, and preferring to stay on a certain surface level, true or not true, isn't the point. I think with this record, he really connects with the energy and the fire that exists, right? About what has happened to him. I kind of wanted to go with the Russian album. I bought that in the Soviet Union when I
Ah,
oh
lived
wow.
there. Yeah, so I have about 10 copies.
Wow.
I think somewhere it's called Pennsylvania. Um, so hopefully my son Ryan's taking care of them. But um, in any event, those are such three great records that send us with those artists back to the music that formed them.
yeah.
By
I
the
know that there are a lot of fans out there that just want original material that don't care as much for the cover versions, but they're so important. And I can take many more albums from Paul and Ringo covering the songs that he loved because, this is what influenced them. That's their passion. And when you find out about a song that you didn't know that they liked, like Lonesome Town for me is
Yeah.
one of my
Mm.
favorite Rick Nelson songs. And I never heard the Beatles ever talk about Rick Nelson, ever, you know? And Paul's voice when he's going in the higher octave is just amazing in that song. So,
And although he never did a covers album, how about George's version of "Got My Mind Set on You"? Right? I
yeah,
mean, what a great cover!
all the
Or is
covers
it
he did, I love
is
the Hoagie Carmichael stuff and
Yeah.
um
the Bob Dylan stuff over the years
oh
that
yeah,
have leaked
Oh,
out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's
the
right at
Mama,
home
I've
doing
Got
Bob
You on
Dylan.
My Mind. I mean,
Hmm.
that just is a towering song.
Yeah. He sounds so at home, just him and an acoustic guitar,
Yeah.
like early takes, volume one, or the stuff that the demos on, well, Things Must Pass. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason, wasn't it Run of the Mill that you went down a rabbit hole with some time ago? Um, just the simple take of that, or am I misremembering?
Was it Run of the Mill or was it I can't remember. Um Beware of Darkness.
Oh, it may have been Beware of
Yeah,
Darkness, but
yeah,
those
yeah.
simple takes are really something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The A side and the flip of their
Oh,
first single, Love Me Do or P.S. I Love You. Okay. Let's start this time with Jason.
Love Me Do,
And why is that?
clearly. I think it's a more put together, sophisticated um, piece of writing. Um, that's it. I don't. I the. It's funny. The early singles are, especially that one, since it's the first one. It just shows them at the very beginning, and everything that we know about them, hasn't developed. But you do have that vocal interplay, um, which is one of the foundations of their sound, and that incredible tension, between them.
Hmm.
Yeah, PS I Love You just it sounds like a B-side. It doesn't sound to me, and again, we're getting into sort of objective subjective opinions about these things, but yeah, I would much rather listen to Love Me Do anytime.
Okay. Well, no doubt about it. That song has a lot of weight to it being the first A side.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm always reminded of the fact, and uh, I've talked about this a number of times. George Martin, when he heard their early songs, he said the best they could come up with was Love Me Do. And I said, what was wrong with Ask Me Why? What was wrong with Yes, I Love You?
Right.
I don't necessarily think Love Me Do is a better song than those, but Ken, what do you think?
yeah, so much of it, as Jason just said, is subjective, and not a first generation fan. I missed that by a few years, but when I was making my early discovery of the Beatles, Love Me Do, for whatever reason, um, wasn't immediately on my radar. And I think it had to do with when I bought the Red Album belatedly,
Hmm.
in that compilation discovery phase that existed so prominently in the 1970s. But I did engage with PS I Love You, and
Hmm.
um, I kind of fell in love with it in
Hmm.
my own little preteen way, especially the end where they ad-lib the vocals, as
Right.
I write this letter. Oh, the
Yeah.
whole thing. Um, I'm kind of giddy right now just thinking about it. It was a really important little moment for me, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess thinking about a time when people still wrote letters.
Mm.
It's a little bit more complex a song than Love Me Do was. So I kind of appreciate it in a way for that. Scott?
Well, I played the Red Album to death, and so I probably um, never get sick of the Beatles, but I've heard "Love Me Do" a lot, and it is, as you said, it's not the most complex song. I think "P.S. I Love You" to me, if you're looking at them and you're saying, where are these guys going to go,
Hmm.
and all you got is that single, right? "Love Me Do" is three chords, the bridge is 5 and 1.
Right.
The lyrics are "Love, love me do, you know I love you," and then suddenly on the flip side you have this song with a Latin feel. It's got this beautiful chord changes. It's got that ending which becomes kind of their thing to do, repeat something 3 times, and the third time change it up. I love you. It's
Yeah.
it's really great, and that chord progression. I think Walter Everett was the one who told me that he was the first one to tell me that that chord progression, flat six, flat seven, one, it kind of originated with that song. It's now used everywhere, but it's hard to find an earlier version of that. So, considering that that was their first B side,
Hmm.
I think that's pretty amazing. And it is kind of interesting that their second B side, "Ask Me Why," is also a Latin feel. Like,
Right.
so they had that down, but I would pick "P.S. I Love You" just because it's a little more interesting to me harmonically and structurally.
Yeah. It's kind of like, where do you go after Besame Mucho? You go
Right.
from that to P.S. I Love You and Ask Me Why. Okay.
You guys have convinced me. I'm changing my answer.
Wait,
Now
are
I
we
want to go
allowed to do
listen to it
that? Ken
again.
sent the rules in advance. It's a
Uh,
600-page book, and
That's too bad. It's Mardi Gras here. I can make my own rules.
that's right. Well, you guys can
Nothing
do anything you
applies.
want down there. I
That's
mean,
right.
well, there are no rules here. You can change your mind if you want to. I'm very flexible that way. All right. So next we have two classic Ringo songs. It Don't Come Easy or Photograph.
Oh,
Ooh.
None of these are easy, are they?
no, they're really not.
Okay. So let's start with Ken now.
Oh my gosh. It's such a tough one because Photograph, of course, is loaded with drama and heartbreak. At a period when we're thinking about drama and heartbreak and the Beatles. Um, but it's a don't come easy for me. Um, I'm very upset with America that it wasn't number one on the Billboard charts, or England for that matter. It should have been number one somewhere,
Hmm.
in a large Western marketplace. And I love just the amount of variation in that song is pretty significant. You know, I find that terrifically interesting. Just the amount of variety, and he sings the hell
Hmm.
out of it.
Oh, I know. Doesn't remember the words at the concert for Bangladesh, but we're not gonna find fault with him for that. Only had one song to do. Anyway, but definitely two classics there. Jason?
Photograph. I mean, I love it. Don't come easy. Again, like you said, really difficult. But yeah, photograph has that really sweet, and this, it's the difficult thread, needle to thread, that just right element of melancholy, nostalgia that's so satisfying when you get it right. And it's beautifully produced. Just an incredibly satisfying song. I just love it.
Who does the sax solo?
Good question. I don't know off the top of my head.
oh,
We
Vinny,
can
is
look it
it
up
some?
while we're talking.
You know,
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
Everything, the orchestration on that. Richard Perry did a great job producing the whole
really did.
album.
Yeah.
Do you feel, obviously, with it Don't Come Easy, you hear George Harrison's presence on there producing it, and he co-wrote part of it.
Yeah.
Um, but in Photograph, which we knew from the start was a Harrison Starkey composition, did you feel a Harrison presence if you weren't told it? Any of you?
I mean, to me, it comes down to the acoustic guitar sound for some reason. I just
Hmm.
associate that with George for some reason.
Yeah.
I
Um,
think about it in sort of the B section of the song where it goes down, da 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 da. that part feels like Ringo could have written the main part of the melody, but that George kind of guided him in that second part. That's what I've always thought.
Right. Ringo has always said that he's good at starting songs, but he needs help finishing them. So
Exactly.
I could hear him writing the verses, but then that middle, the bridge part, is probably George. Let me
Bobby
just see.
Keys.
Bobby
Bobby Keys.
Keys. Oh wow.
Okay.
I, huh,
Great sax part right there.
no question.
Okay. Scott, what's your pick?
I got to go with Photograph. They're both great songs, and this is really hard. Um, but I love Photograph. Ken and I have been talking about banger moments. The moment in the song. Oh, we lost Jason. The
Hmm.
moment in the song where.
Hard to
Do you want me to
grow.
wait for Jason?
No, you can go.
Okay. The moment where everything changes, where it's just like, wow, that's great. And for me in Photograph, it's like where the verse ends and suddenly you're back to the introduction. Everything drops back and then it builds back up for one more time. I love the arrangement of that song. I love the part that I think George wrote, the B section of the
Yeah.
verses, and it's a great arrangement. The sax solo, it's a great performance. But I would take either. Really.
Okay. Jason's coming back.
Oh, good.
It's funny,
I hope
years
his
ago when
house
I,
wasn't overrun by some parade or something.
Yeah. A bead got in the internet connection somehow.
when I used to talk about Photograph years ago, I said, wow, it really has a Phil Spector kind of feel to it. And then you learn that Bill Schnee used to work with Phil Spector.
Hmm.
So maybe that had something to do with it.
Oh, it
It's such a
could. And
sound.
Jason and I, while we wait for Jason to reconnect, we spoke with Schnee about making that record, so we could understand when Ringo's brain was in 73, 74.
Uh-huh.
And it's a sort of a Lennon-esque recording, right? They made it very quickly, all of those songs. Although there was a lot of post-production on that. And I think the guy who did the orchestration was Jack Nietzsche.
Right. And he worked with Spector, right?
Is that right?
I
Okay.
think so.
Jason, hold up two fingers if mad paraders are trying to attack you.
No, it's just Zoom crashed. I don't know what happened.
No.
Okay. This is great. Between the three of you, none of you are in agreement with with this,
Good.
with any of these, so we get different opinions here. All right. Depending upon how much time we have, this could be our last one, although I could throw one extra one in there. Here we go. Free as a bird, real love, now and then.
No.
Which one do you prefer the most? All right. Jason, we'll start with you.
Real love from the first time I heard it. Just love the production, love the sound, love the song. I feel like it really, I'd always loved that song, even hearing it on Lost Lennon tapes
Hmm.
and hearing the, the version in the Imagine John Lennon film. Um, yeah, it just really, uh, it's always just really been a bullseye for me. All of it, the harmonies, George's solo, just all the little touches.
George's guitar parts are amazing in that song.
Yeah,
And there's a song where we heard the evolution of it
yeah.
through
And
being on Imagine John Lennon or the Lost Lennon tapes, all these different versions of it. So yeah, three songs here to treasure.
yep.
Scott?
I'm agreeing with Jason on this one. I think Real Love I love the harmonies on it. It feels like they're singing together, more so for me at least than Free as a Bird. Um, and it just I like the sentiment. I like it.
Okay. Ken?
I do think that Real Love is the best of the Threetles songs. It's certainly the catchiest. It's the best written composition. I love the Regina Spektor version of it, which I think if you haven't heard it, is magnificent.
Wow.
Hmm.
Um,
Check that out.
Although, like
Yeah.
Jason, the original demo of that unvarnished is actually quite lovely. John really got a good take there with his cassette player on top of his piano or whatever he was doing in the Dakota.
Uh-huh.
But the one I go to is Free as a Bird.
Mm,
Um, all of its limitations, and there are many. The compression, the over Jeff Linification,
mm.
which I believe is a word, over Jeff Linification. All one word, over Jeff Linification.
No hyphens.
No hyphens, nothing, just
No, I
all
definitely saw
caps too,
I
by the
definitely
way,
saw that in
interestingly.
the Oxford English Dictionary, the latest edition. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's and when I say it, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it
And
actually has a
I think that's
connotation.
what actually bothers me about the song, which I really, really like. But it feels like an ELO song,
Oh, it does,
almost.
and he can make Tom Petty sound like ELO.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing. But what I like about the song is just the brute nostalgia of it, right? It really worked on me very well in the 90s. And I think I still carry that with me, from the video even, to the trick ending with the ukulele. Um, I just love its charm. But, objectively, the best song is of the three is Real Love. But there's something special for me with Free as a Bird.
But what's the best video?
Free as a Bird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other two, Real Love is all right. And the other one, to be fair, is kind of corny.
Yeah.
You didn't like the Peter Jackson video?
I love
Finding
Peter.
old footage and new footage.
All apologies to Peter Jackson, who we all love.
Yeah, I love Peter, but no, it certainly shows us what technology can do.
Yeah. When it comes to Free as a Bird, do you prefer the original or the new remix?
I do prefer the original. Um, to me, it's the standard, right? But it also just has the effect of being, the primacy effect of being the first one I heard,
Yeah.
right? And I think primacy with artistic and aesthetic experience is very powerful. The first version you read or see tends to have um, a kind of indelible imprint upon, the user, the audience, the listener, whatever it is. And I think that's the case there. Um, I love uh, listening to the remasters and remixes, particularly the remixes where I can hear new instruments maybe that I hadn't heard before because of
Uh-huh.
separation. I find that really exciting, but there is the primacy of the recording, and whether it's the Threetles or the Beatles, I think that's at play.
Oh, I still think it's the Beatles. You
Well,
know,
you know what
yeah,
I mean.
yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, well, we could argue that all day. I'll let somebody else do that.
Mhm.
I
You
think
know,
in
I
regards
think
to mixes, I don't know how much you guys pick up on the fan mixes, but there's a really beautiful fan mix of Real Love, which this is before the new, most recent remixes came out. That took it apart and put it back together, and it sounds more Beatly. And in particular, the bridge, it
Mm.
splits John's vocals into stereo and puts them in either ear, and it just feels like such a Beatly thing to do. It's just like
Uh,
it really takes that moment and emphasizes it, I think, perfectly. So
Don't you like, Jason, that edgy sort of slide solo, George? I really like that. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
it's there's not a lot of, I'm sure the Jeff Linification was in vogue at that moment, but George's guitar solo almost resists it.
yeah. It's unfortunate
it's very good.
the drum sounds on those two songs are
Mm.
very Jeff Lynnified, which is
Mm.
also a word.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we all spend a lot of time with isolations. I've been, as both of you know, lately listening to Old Brown Shoe. The drums on Old Brown Shoe by themselves are crazy. it's this incredible, energizing gallop, right? And the problem with Jeff Lynnification is the victim is Ringo.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's a good
I
point.
agree.
And I guess the Heartbreakers drummer. Yeah. And Bev Bevan.
I'm pretty sure Kevin Howlett wrote in the Abbey Road um, archival box set that it's Paul drumming on Old Brown Shoe.
Yeah, he's wrong.
He's Kevin
I have
Howlett.
these diaries. I have these really cool diaries that suggest something else.
Okay.
Yeah, Kevin's wrong on that. He's a sweet man, but
just to bounce off something you just said, there's a parallel to me in appreciating what Jeff Lynne did with Free as a Bird and Real Love with the limitations he had. Much the same way what George Martin had to work with
Hmm.
most of the Beatles recordings being four track. You know, how much can you marvel at the fact that Sergeant Pepper was done in four track? So, in the same regard, I have such a deep appreciation for what he was able to pull off as opposed to what's much easier to do now.
oh, that is so true. And all four of us, I bet, have experience. I mean, literally, I have experience in the 70s trying to record on my piano with my garage band. Not garage band, I
Not
mean, literally
garage
my
band, right?
band,
Hmm.
with a
And
Panasonic cassette recorder
Yeah.
sitting on our upright in our dining room. And of course, just trying to get the recording down of some, what I believed was a nifty piano part I wrote, with my band performing in the dining room, which was driving my mother crazy because she was adjacent in the kitchen. But in any event, we all know what John was doing because we had cassette players that were picking up resonances from sitting on top of
right.
the piano, or my mother coughing in the kitchen,
Right.
or whatever. I mean, that's what John was dealing with. The Dakota was not like a better studio than we had. In fact, it was the same crappy studio we had at our homes.
Uh,
Right. And it wasn't his intent to make those finished recordings. They were demos, right? So it didn't really matter.
That's
Yeah.
right. And he didn't have the really souped up keyboard setup yet when he did those songs. That
Right.
came later.
Hmm.
okay. All right. So let me ask one more question here. Since we've been talking about Jeff Lynne, since we all, are very keen when it comes to listening to the Beatles and the production work, as a producer for George, Phil Spector or Jeff Lynne? This time we'll start with Scott.
Well, um, oh God, see, this is really tough because I love Cloud Nine. I think Cloud Nine is just a great album, and I like it also because it kind of it let George go out on a high note. If he hadn't had Cloud Nine and Brainwash, he would have ended on a sour note. But those albums are great, especially Cloud Nine. Really, really like it. It does definitely have the linification, no question about it. But he brought out something really, really good in him. But I've devoured Ken and Jason's book on All Things Must Pass. I love that album. Um, but Phil Spector is also a nut, so I don't know. To me, I actually prefer the un-Phil Spector versions of the All Things Must Pass songs. I prefer them without all the echo, without the 70-piece bands, but as we said earlier, just George sitting with a guitar. Um, and so to me, I'm gonna have to go. I know you guys probably don't agree with me. I'm gonna have to go with Jeff Lynne on this one.
Okay. All right. I've certainly expressed my opinion about this in my podcast. It's great that we have different opinions here, but part of the reason why All Things Must Pass wasn't just the fact that these are great songs, but the way they were produced and the sound that came out of them for that time. And I think they really work for those songs. But let's hear from the rest of you. Jason.
Well, as you mentioned, the book, what I discovered when interviewing people for the book, especially Klaus Vorman and John Barham, who did the orchestral arrangements,
Hmm.
working with George, um, is that Spector's role was as sort of the commander of everybody in the studio. So George could be in the studio teaching them the songs while he's in the control room getting the sound right.
Hmm.
And those stripped down tracks are not, not the sort of wall of sound specterized uh, sound that we associate with the finished album. So that a lot of that comes from George, because by that point Spector had started to sort of lose interest in because he wasn't as required. His energy wasn't required as much because it was a lot of overdubs and sort of planning what those orchestral arrangements would be. And so he wasn't as involved in that process. That was George who was making those decisions.
Hmm.
And so it, in that sense, the production of that album is very much a collaboration between the two of them. And certainly there's the, doubling and tripling of instruments in those band sessions. So that is very Spector. Um, but I think with George's approval, I think he was on top of everything that was happening. And I think he gave Spector freedom, but he didn't, um, it, from what I learned, from researching that, he didn't sort of just let him go off on his own and do what he wanted. He was in control. And by that, at that point, I think Spector himself was in control. So it was much easier to manage that. Um, so I'll preface my comments with that. I think Cloud Nine is very well produced, and good songs. I don't like every song on that album, but I think there's some good songs. And I remember what a revelation it was at the time, because it's like, oh, listen to this. This is great. This is so much fun, got my mind set on you. And again, when we was Fab really hits that note of perfect melancholy and nostalgia. And it's
Hmm.
just it's so sweet. And yet, there's this, I noticed that uh, in the backing vocals at one point in When We Was Fab, where I forget the line, but it's like the backing vocals are answering the line in the song that's saying, it's all over now. I think it's
Hmm.
it's all over now, baby blue, and the
Right.
backing vocals kind of go, ah, and it's just these little clever, touches, which isn't like, front and center enough that it's gonna seem like too much. Um, so this is tough. Um, but I'm gonna go with Spectre just because of all the thousands of times I've listened to All Things Must Pass now as a result of
Right.
this book. It's burned into my brain, and I just appreciate all the depth and all the levels and all the work that went into creating those recordings.
Hmm. Well, based on the work that you and Ken did on the book and what you just said, it seems like living in the material world was really what George wanted. That kind of sound where it wasn't very, even though Phil Spector was there,
Yeah,
you only hear about Try Some, Buy Some because he, produced the original for Ronnie Spector. But if you look at the box set, Phil Spector was involved with living in the material world. It was much simpler production. Nothing like the really full wall of sound. Certain songs, maybe, who can see it?
yeah.
Some
I
of
think
that.
I think the songs didn't lend themselves to that, but also Spectre at that point was far more unreliable, and he wasn't going to be able to command an army of musicians like he did on All Things Must Pass. So I think by that point he was drinking, and the fact that he came in, uh, I don't know exactly how long he was there, but the impression I get is that it wasn't that long, wasn't that deep into the production of the record. You guys may know better than me. But for All Things Must Pass, he was there for all of the tracking sessions. He was, whatever, how many months that was.
Right.
Um, so to me, much more involved in that. And, again, George's vision of what that album was is much different than any of the albums past that, subsequently.
Okay, Ken.
I second that. All things must pass. The fact that they were able to bring that massive production in for a landing is really something. Um, what was it that was it Alan Parsons, Jason, who said that, anybody who had an instrument was allowed to play. Basically, if we were there, we would have been on the tracks.
Yeah.
Um, and so to be able to navigate all of that, I think was maybe one of the last great moments really for Phil Spector was making that record, which is why
Mm,
it's sad that he didn't go on the record about it when he had the opportunity,
mm.
which we gave him. But it's such a masterpiece, I mean, it's a massive, big vision, and maybe, I mean, for many people, it's the best Beatles solo album, and there's a good case to be made for that. It's just a masterwork, and Phil's part of that.
Doesn't hurt to have two great albums in your package, plus a jam. There's a
Yeah,
lot there. It's not just quality, but it's quantity too.
yeah,
All
it's
right,
just
very
a massive production.
this has been tremendous. Before we wrap things up, why don't we tell everybody watching this what each of you are up to? Ken, you said earlier that you and Jason are working on a book on 1974. About when do you think that'll be out?
I
1975.
Yeah, we're not
2075.
sure.
Yeah.
We keep getting away from that, but it has a lot of wonderful new interviews in it. Been working with Scott on a compendium about the songs, and then, but I'm also the big story this year is trying to get Mal Part Two done, which will be out in the fall, late fall. It's called right now. It's called Mal Evans and the Beatles: An Illustrated Journey, and it's I'll make sure that it has the bit in there about Ringo playing drums on Old Brown Shoe. So thank you for that. I mean, it's so we need to dispel things like that.
Okay. With
And
all
uh,
respect
and
to
uh,
Kevin Howlett.
Mhm.
I
and
love Kevin, but yeah.
Ken, I will. I don't want to. I'll do this very delicately, but I was looking through through something you sent me related to that the other day, and for whatever reason, the Ken, your interview with Peter Jackson had popped up again. Somebody had posted about it, talking about that mystery session at
Mm,
Apple, um, and there's a date in the diaries attached to that session.
Okay.
So we'll have a solid date on that once Ken publishes this, among many, many other answers to lingering questions, I'm sure.
Okay. Just to elaborate a little bit more about what Kevin Howlett said, was that the Ballad of John and Yoko, Ringo obviously wasn't there because he was filming The Magic Christian, but All Brown Shoe was the next day. So he was still working on The Magic Christian that day. So he wasn't available. That's what he says. That's two
well,
days in a row, so it's possible.
we
But
have, but thanks to the Evans estate, the diaries are just very clear. Mal's making contemporaneous notes, and in history, there's nothing more valuable than that.
okay,
Of course, Mal
good.
had trouble telling Paul and Ringo apart, so you got to take that into
Yeah, he
account.
never knew really. He
Yeah,
thought Ringo was the cute Beatle, so maybe that's what
yeah.
Right, there you
happened.
go.
We've all had that problem for years, so yeah, I get it.
Um, are you at liberty to discuss the Revolver Festival in November?
Well, I mean, you know that Ken, you were there. People had such a good time, and of course, this is a festless year in
Hmm.
terms of the Fest for Beatles fans. We were doing some work today, talking to venues about how we might stage the Revolver version. Obviously, Revolver deserves its own damn conference, doesn't it?
Oh,
I don't know that it's ever had one. Um, when we were doing the Beatles conference series several years ago, we started with Peppers, so we skipped Revolver. I was going to try to do it, but I had just moved here to the shore, and I felt like we wouldn't do it justice. So I think there's a very good chance we'll be staging that the first week of November. And hope you're all there. Jason, if I have to come down and get you,
I think I can put together something for Revolver. I think I can do
yeah. Yeah, I mean you've done a little bit of thinking about it, if I'm not mistaken,
a
over the years.
little bit. Yeah, I might have some material. Um, that's actually, I mean, go ahead and finish. We'll pick up on that in a minute.
No,
Well, I'm
for anyone
finished.
wondering, there was a conference for Rubber Soul, which was last November. Scott was there, and he did his own Deconstructing Rubber Soul, which is great. They're all great. So, Jason, other than the book with Ken, still working on new shows for producing the Beatles.
Right. Still working on that. And you can go to producingthebeatles.com. I am putting some of the remixes and demixes I've been doing on YouTube. So you can go to the Producing the Beatles YouTube and look for those. Uh, putting up more as time permits. What else? What else? Really, that's the most of it for the Beatles stuff. I occasionally teach Zoom class through Monmouth. Thank you, Ken. Uh, about this, I need to figure out what the next one will be before I commit to anything. But I have some ideas, maybe some George ideas. So we'll
I
see.
think you're bearing one of the great things that you do, and that is the work you've been doing with the orchestrations um, is truly phenomenal to draw out the sounds that people like John Barham composed.
Mm.
Um, I mean,
Well, I did. I
some of the work that I don't know if the world's heard it yet. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I was able to sync up the vocal from the finished mix with a bootleg that had the orchestra all panned to the left channel. And using machine learning tech, I was able to pull all that apart and get an individual track for violins, violas, cellos, and bass. And to do
for
and
Eleanor
Great
Rigby.
song.
no for Beware of Darkness.
Over Beware of Darkness.
Yeah.
Ah,
And
I have
and
not
so
heard that one.
and so it's on
It's
YouTube. You can go check it
beautiful.
out. And
Okay.
I sent it to John Barham, and he's like, that sounds like really interesting technology you're using. So it was nice to be able to send it, because I think it's very beautiful. And I mixed a little bit of the Hammond organ from Bobby Whitlock in there too.
Mm,
Um, and it really is a different way of hearing that song. Um, and doing things like that, I think people have this stuff all over YouTube, but it's a really interesting way of just seeing how many layers there are to these recordings.
Yeah.
Just how deep this stuff goes.
And John Barham did extraordinary work on All Things Must Pass with
yes,
Isn't
he
It a
did.
Pity?
Yeah.
Trying to think of what else. Didn't he do for Try Some Buy Some? Wasn't that his
I can,
string
I'll
arrangement?
have to check. I don't remember if that's him. Yeah.
Okay. That's an amazing song. A very complicated song. Try Some
Yeah.
Buy Some.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, you can tell the folks what you're up to. I actually wrote down the dates if you want me to read them.
Oh, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, well, he's doing his Deconstructing the Beatles series. He's doing one on Abbey Road at the B&H stage in Concord, New Hampshire. That's April 17th. He's doing one on Revolver at Shames JCC in Tarrytown, New York. That's April 25th. The White Album, that's what I'm going to be at and introducing Scott. That's at the Schubert Theater in New Haven, Connecticut, May the 7th. Revolver with Ken Womack.
Yes.
Oh, the Mystery Girls.
Uh-huh. And I'm
Really?
trying to think. Yeah. And we've got I'm going to be doing Dark Side of the Moon in Cary, North Carolina on March 15th too. So all those dates are on deconstructingthemusic.com and many more. I appreciate that. And I also want to mention the Fab Four Masterclass that Ken and I teach once a month. We've got Help coming up on Wednesday. And then that's followed by a class on folk music, a class on the Beach Boys, and then we pick back up with Rubber Soul and Revolver to end the year. A lot of fun. We have a great chat going. We get a good crowd, and you can find out about that at fab4masterclass.com.
Okay. And you can also just look in the description box because there's links to everyone here and what they're doing and their own websites. The one that I mentioned with Ken is at the Collective Encore in Columbia, Maryland.
Maryland.
That's June the 7th. And then you've got one on Sergeant Pepper on June 14th at Little Theater at the Civic Center Music Hall in Oklahoma City.
Oh, yep, yep. I have to learn that album all over again. Like it's not burned into our brains, right? It's
Right.
amazing.
The three of you are making me look lazy.
Well, Ken, hey, kudos to you. This is a
Yes,
very
bravo.
innovative show idea. I didn't know what to expect. This was fun and it made us think. Way to go.
Well, there's so much great music the Beatles have given us that it's not easy to pick between two or three songs or two or three albums. So, yeah, I thought it'd be a good idea to do this periodically, and I hope to do more of them. So, to the three of you, Ken, Scott, and Jason, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to everybody watching. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel and check out everything that these three guys are doing, if you can keep up with it all. Okay. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.